Okay, we should be live right now. Good morning, Juliana and Zulma. This is our another episode of Young Entrepreneurs Building the Future of Business. And with me, we have Juliana Scheidhauer, co-host of our program, and also Zulma Bernice, who is a lead coach for Vino and Vision and Darmil Group. Welcome both. Juliana, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and lead the way?
Yeah, good morning. It's good to be here this morning. My name is Juliana Scheidhauer, the co-host for the Young Entrepreneurship Group here, and excited to have Zuma here today to give us some tips and advice and things that she's seen as an entrepreneur herself and what she's seen with young entrepreneurs. So glad to have her.
Good morning to both of you. Thank you for having me. I love sharing any knowledge, experience, skills, anything I have to offer to uh, pave the way for anyone who's ready to embark on the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, so could you start off by just telling us a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. So I have always had a very entrepreneurial spirit, I will call it. And I think it's just an innate, natural gift I received from my parents, from both seeing them, um, but also the duality that it's life, in the sense that although someone may have that spirit, at the same time, you have to make certain decisions for what is best at a certain point in your life. So I saw both sides from my parents. And one of the best examples I have of that is that I believe that that spirit is what may have driven them to desire a better life for their children, and to, move to a whole different country, the whole different language. And by this time they are, they were in their 30s, um, without any real plan other than just wanting a better life. So if that's not entrepreneurial spirit,
Mm,
I really don't know what
yeah.
is. So yeah, so for me, it definitely just, put something in me as a young girl to want to benefit from the freedom that it is. Not saying it's an easy thing to do, because
Mhm.
nothing worth working for and having is necessarily easy, but definitely the sense of freedom that being an entrepreneur gives to one, for me, has been important, because it also allows me to be creative about
Mm.
the different businesses that I've been involved with. And at the end of the day, and it's what drives my holistic leadership practice, is that
Mhm.
I don't believe in the saying that goes like this: it's not personal, it's business. I don't believe that business is never not personal. For a business who forgets that, that's really where things go south. Because
Mhm.
even though it has scaled to a place where they might not need to care that it's personal, there will be casualties. There will be people who suffer because of it.
Mhm.
So that's at the heart of my entrepreneurial journey. And in holistic leadership, it's about bringing the heart back into business. And for me, it just goes back down to that little girl who learned from her parents what is the true meaning of entrepreneurship. And it's something that I want to either awaken or connect young entrepreneurs to never forget that those they are serving are human beings just like them. And whether it's another business, another entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship, at the end of the day, it's about profit, in the sense that we need it to
Mhm.
have better quality of life, but it's about the people, the relationships, and the connections that you make along the way. And that's, whether you are a small company or $1 billion company, it doesn't matter.
Yep, I agree. So both you and Dr. Islam have been in, the business entrepreneurship world for a while. So this next question is directed to both of you. So what are some trends that you see with young entrepreneurs now? Maybe that differs from when you first began your journey as an entrepreneur.
Zulma, you want to go first?
Sure. Trends. Well, the first one that comes to mind, it's one that it's pretty obvious, which is there are so many more tools that young entrepreneurs have today versus when I did. I had internet was definitely around, but I didn't have the different social media platforms, just the different ways in which we can network and connect today were not there for me. So it was more of a progressive, slower growth, both in mindset and in actual business practice. Whereas today, we're sitting here in different locations in different parts of the US, and we are carrying on with this meeting. And the same goes for any entrepreneur across the world. It used to be where if you had a business meeting in Australia and you lived in Bangkok, you had to fly there. You don't have to do that today. So definitely not that it's necessarily a trend, because it's something that has changed so many things for human beings in general, and especially for the growth and development of business. But definitely it was something that I did not have then that it's available today.
Yes.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is nicely said, Zulma. Many years ago, there's a gentleman who wrote a book, and the book is called "The World Is Flat," and it's Thomas Friedman, and he wrote this book to talk about how the globalization is impacting the world, and that is long time ago. At that time, we were working in different organizations and Fortune 500 companies, and we have experienced globalization suddenly took over. And with the globalization, there was a lot of opportunities that came into play. And I have done my PhD research on my doctoral research on outsourcing and how it's benefit or not benefit. That was the subject matter of my research and dissertation. And we found at that time that globalization has impact on all organizations, good or bad. There is an impact. And at that time, we looked at in the future and how the future will be looking. The US Department of Labor published outlook for future for work outlook. And that is, I highly recommend everybody to read that outlook, because it provides you a guidance where the future is going based on the trends. And you asked Juliana about the trends. So that document, US Department of Labor's, and I don't recall the exact title of the document, but it's called Future Outlook for Workplace. And it provides you at least 10-year or beyond outlook. And when you study that outlook, you will find out which professions and which specific job market will be the future opportunity. And by doing those research, young entrepreneurs today can also know where is the trend going and what is future going to be. In our case, in my case specifically, I was looking at what to do with the knowledge that I have acquired through doctoral research, doctoral study, which, as you know, doctoral research and study provide a much higher level knowledge that most probably a lot of corporations and organizations you don't need. You have the MBA, you can provide that. But when you are in a doctoral level, you need to find what they call scholarly search. And with the scholarly search, we are able to do much good in the entrepreneur side as well. And that's what focused me to focus on growing business at the same time, improving leadership all over the country and now all over the world. So we are working on that. So that's how we started our journey.
Very good. Yeah. Definitely technology has advanced a lot of things, and globalization, has changed the world, for sure. And it's interesting, especially during COVID, how that's also changed things, as well. Just like globalization is expanding, but over the last several months, and I guess year, with COVID, it's played a different role, in that countries are actually looking more inwards, at this point during COVID, but also diversifying their supply chain, being able to make sure that they mitigate the risk with, certain countries not being able to offer certain things or outputs, things like that. So it's really interesting to see that, perspective there. So thank you for that. The next question I have for you guys. So what are some top skills, that entrepreneurs need or require, that you've experienced or seen?
Zulma, I'm keeping it open for you first.
Okay. For me, I would say the first skill that just has to come first is the interpersonal connection that an entrepreneur, the ability that an entrepreneur has. I'm a firm believer that you should keep your doors open. There may be, people you meet, there might be opportunities you have, and because of timing, they're just not right at the moment. But it doesn't mean that they couldn't be right at a certain point. So keeping your doors open, keeping, your lane clear, and should the right time come and things align, you'll have so many opportunities that will feel right according to the flow of that moment in the entrepreneurial journey. So then things become so much more organic and holistic in how they're done. So therefore, the possibility that the results will be as such too are higher. When someone acts contrary to that and might not only put, not align with that opportunity, but feel like it's beneath them, or the opposite, above them, and that they're not good enough. All of these things go into consideration. So just being present and knowing that if something doesn't align for either reason, there might be a better time. So definitely keeping the doors open, building your bridges, and then everything after that, it should be a natural occurrence.
Okay,
Yes,
very good.
very nicely said, Julma. And that keeping the mind open and opportunities and relationship that you mentioned is fantastically said. What I would add to that is entrepreneurs are a different group of people. They have a different mindset, and they have a different way of seeing things. And that's what distinguishes entrepreneurs from the normal people who like to go get a job and work from 8 to 5, or depend on a salary from somebody else. So the entrepreneurs, and you will see that, and over time, young or old, you will see them, they are risk takers. They take risk, and by taking the risk, they believe in themselves. Means they believe that there is a possibility, there is a thing that they can achieve on their lifetime. And some of the entrepreneurs that you are seeing now, and I refer to Bill Gates a lot, the people who started young and dropped out from college, and you see a Twitter example, or you see all of those examples, many of them are actually focused on the future, and they say to themselves that I believe what I'm doing, and I believe that this one is worth of taking the risk. And they take the risk, and they invest everything and anything they have, time, energy, money, and all you can mention. And the other thing that in entrepreneurs are different from rest of the world, they're innovators. They come up with ideas that a lot of people don't have. Even the people that, I used to work for Fortune 500 company, and they have the innovation lab where we bring in people to innovate things. And these people get paid because they are workers and employees. And we bring in them to come up with an idea, and a lot of people struggle to come up with the idea, and eventually they do. The difference in hiring people is when you look at for ownership and entrepreneurship, if you find the people with self-motivated, self-driven, self-innovative, these are a lot of self-involved. And when this self come to picture, you will see that those entrepreneurs, not only in the business world, they can also make significant difference in corporate environment, but corporations have to give them opportunity to be entrepreneur and be innovative.
Yeah, very well said too. So when you were saying that, what came to mind was just like how the workforce is changing, and how a lot of people are actually moving towards freelance work, and doing kind of, and maybe they're not in the traditional sense an entrepreneur, but in some ways they are, because they're doing freelance work, and there's I think a lot more ability to be a freelance worker, and a lot more people wanting to do that because they want to be in control of their schedule. They want to have the fluidity of going between companies and corporations. So that's really interesting that you say that, because yeah, I think that entrepreneurship is expanding, and it maybe looks a little bit different today too, just with the expanding of entrepreneurship.
That is fantastic, because just think about freelance work that you mentioned. People are working from home now, and that is kind of working separately from the institution. And as a freelance worker, people are now controlling their own environment and own passion. And
right, and so in some cases too, they're even able to still work with that company just as their own boss, and have more say in what they do.
Yes, and that may be a trend we will be experiencing in future, that corporations are going for freelance worker. And
yeah, they also at that point don't have to pay benefits for the freelance worker.
Right. Well, the laws have to be improved on that, Juliana,
Yes.
because a culture of entrepreneurship, culture of innovation, culture of growth, and culture of human knowledge, utilizing human potential is significant. And the laws and all those things have to focus on that. And when you do that, people are not dependent on that specific thing, because they are now free to be innovative, creative, and give their best to this world. And we as a organization, we as a country, have to realize that the way we became United States became one of the best countries in the world by innovation, by and you can start with the industrial revolution, and you can see how many new things we have created, including NASA and all those other things that we are putting together. All of this new creation, many of them came from this country, because we focused on entrepreneurship. And if the culture of the country completely focus on entrepreneurship, just imagine how that will look and how we'll grow into a significant future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting with that, and just the dynamics and environment of the culture and different cultures too, globally, and how things are changing in that way. Just a lot of things are driven, culture and business and productivity is driven by the amount of population a country has. And so a lot of Western cultures and countries are actually diminishing in their population, which is a problem for them, which is why technology is so important and automation is so important. The one downside with that is that they don't actually spend money. Automation doesn't. So, it'll be interesting to see the future, and how countries deal with population. And, there's always immigration, but no, there's a lot of political things around that too. But yeah, so that's very interesting. I guess one last question I have for you guys. If you had the chance to start your career over again, and you're starting your entrepreneurship journey again, what would you change?
That's a good question. You got us thinking there. I'm really happy where I am today. I
Mhm.
believe that I am who I am to be because of the decisions I made. Should I have made any different decision, I'd be a different person.
Mhm.
Slightly or even more, I don't know. But today I'm very present with my journey and where I'm headed and where I want to go. So in small details, technical things, perhaps, just different, maybe um, using more of the tools that were available, being more aware of what's out there to make it better, faster, easier.
Mhm.
But the journey itself, I don't think I would really change anything.
Okay, very good.
Very, very well, Zulma. But you know what I would say in my experience in this, or my journey, is, and I'll bring in Maslow's hierarchy of need is a good example of where your need resides. So if you are in a college and you are working in the library for minimum wage and 20 hours a week, and at the same time going full-time college and doing other things, um, your needs may be different, and there is also involved in party needs and fun needs and football and games need and all kind of other things need, at the same time survival need of like what is the future look like for me. So
Mhm.
if I had to start all over again from the beginning, I would start as Juliana. Just think about that.
I don't know
Why?
if you'd want to do that.
Because why? Because
Maybe
that's
just a better version of myself.
well, that better version will come with time, but it's starting as an entrepreneur who is like to take risk. We actually all take risk when including joining in a company, because you don't know what the company gonna do to you, or including what the company will have in future of their own. A big company can be bankrupt, or can be gone out of business because of legal issues like Enron or other that we have experienced. But as a risk taker at the early age is a journey that you can start, and you know eventually we all take risk. But
Mhm.
if you start it at the beginning and you focus on all those things we talked about, like believing in yourself, having these opportunities and innovation ideas and creative ideas, you don't know where the future is going to lead you. Nobody know in any situation, even including you getting a job. And look at it in COVID time, a lot of people losing jobs. But if I had to do it all over again, I would be starting exactly where you are starting, as a innovator and an entrepreneur.
Okay, yeah, very good. So, one last thing, what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs?
I think just a continuation of what Milu just said,
Mhm.
knowing or being very present and aware of where it is that you want to go, because again, it's not necessarily going to be an easy journey. So
Mhm.
knowing what you want and the risks, and also the sacrifices that may entail, being very aware of that might make it somewhat easier to know that,
Mhm.
okay, well, it's part of the experience versus it coming to fruition, having hardships and sacrifices, and thinking that it may always be like that. So it's better to give up, you know,
Mhm.
just knowing that there will be hard times, that there will be um, times where the startup, the business, whatever it is, may have to be a priority, and
Mhm.
that you have to show up. You have to show up for it because no one else will. It's your journey. So I would say that's definitely one of the best advice I can give. Also, researching and looking at examples of other young entrepreneurs. Read their stories, become aware of what challenges they went through. Perhaps they share their solutions too that might work for you. So yeah, I would say definitely finding a way to relate to others who embarked on that journey and seeing how they are doing, what worked, what didn't work, and it's best to prevent than have to deal with certain things. So I would say that would definitely be a really good idea.
Very
For
nice.
sure. That's some good advice there.
Yeah. And my advice will be the same advice I would give to the person who climbed the Mount Everest for the very first time. Just go back and find the person who landed in the moon very first time. So my advice is life is a journey and you will always have risk. But when before climbing the Mount Everest, if you consider all the risk you will be facing, there's a lot of risk. But you have to trust the journey and you have to have the faith in yourself. If you have the faith in yourself and if you trust the journey, and you will know that you will face a lot of challenges. There is nothing in this world without challenges, but you have to climb the mountain. If you set your goal to climb the mountain, you will reach there. Life or or dead, you will reach there. But you have to trust the journey, and you have to, along the way, you have to learn how to deal with different changing situation. And of course, you will have to look for advice. You have to look for people who've been there before. But for example, Mount Everest, if you are the first one on the top of it, definitely nobody was there before. But along the way, you met people who can help you, guide you, and say, well, I was halfway there, but I can help you to go more than the halfway. But trust the journey, because you don't know where the journey gonna take you, and you may be the only one person who have reached there. And if you have that trust in yourself, you are a strong entrepreneur, and everybody is there to help you if you ask.
And I'll add to that. This week or last week, I believe, Elon Musk was in a Clubhouse room, and someone asked him for some motivating words, and the topic was startups. And his response was, if you need motivating words, don't start startup. And while I don't completely agree with that, it is true. But what I would add to that is that, like Milu said earlier, there's a lot of it's mostly self involved in entrepreneurship. So it's more about where it is that you are looking for motivation. Absolutely inward, because that's where the desire started. That's where the creative innovation and the root cause of this idea that you want to put out into the world and see happen. That's where it resides. So inward motivation, and then do find the ways to become motivated. Like I said earlier, look at people who started like you did and where they're at. Let that be your motivation. But if you have to ask to receive motivation, then that's definitely probably not a good sign. Maybe.
Yeah, it shows more external motivation than internal. So I think what you both had to say about the journey and resilience is really, really key, as well as just sticking to, a groundhold for keep pushing through the hardships, and really identifying that and knowing yourself well. I think that was all really good advice there. Well, it was really a pleasure to have both of you guys here. And it was really good to hear more advice from people who've journeyed there before.
Well, one word thought I would leave everybody here with is trust the journey and trust in yourself, because nobody can tell you what next day going to be. You are the one who will create the next day. And if you trust that, you can be anything you want to be. Just trust the process, trust the journey. And there is a lot of people who can help you on that. But at the same times, you are the one who will get there, but you have to trust it.
Every
Okay.
day, every day I wake up and say, everything's going to be okay. And therefore, everything is going to be okay. So that's one last thought I want to add. If you are set on entrepreneurship, just wake up and say, everything will work out. Everything's going to be okay. And it usually is because your mindset's already there.
Very well. Well, that was a very nice discussion. And, and normally I don't like to give advice, but this is one of those places that you asked me to give advice. But yeah, it's the journey is our own. It's our own. No matter who come in our life, the journey, each individual journey is our own, and we have to write our own chapter. And every decision that we make along the way, we have to say that the decision was made by me. It's not somebody else made for me. It was made by me, because accountability is what comes at the very best and very fast. Because whatever you did or whatever you will do, you are the one who will make the decision. And that's the decision will take you forward. And make sure, if you trust the journey and trust yourself, make the best of it. Well, thank you, Juliana, and thank you,
Thank you.
Zulma. It was very nice to meet you guys and discuss that. And we have another entrepreneur will be joining us next time, and we will be discussing more with that person. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank
Bye.
you. Have a good day.